Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the 2022 Hear My Story finale. I do apologize for my recent absence. I have been busy with real life stuff, working on a new skill set, which hopefully I'll be able to showcase a bit more in the coming year. It has been a fun year in contests and a fun year in reviews for those I've been able to do, and I do hope to continue to do more next year, but we shall see what the future brings. I'm not going to waffle on too much, and I'm going to try to do these to the best of my abilities. I've managed to squeeze these into my extremely packed schedule because I wanted to make sure these got out on the 23rd. So without further ado, I bring you our first winner, Temp House is Not Home by Iago-chan. Fumen Coffin Home, a small place for the locals to temporarily place their dead, had two people working there today. One was Suzu, the mortuary makeup artist, and Gloria Lee, the temp who served as a watcher while the full-time watcher was traveling. It was not the first time Gloria served as the temp watcher, yet she still carried the watcher's notes around and took it out every few hours just to make sure she had every little detail in mind. There were 9 coffin spots in the coffin home, 5 on the left side of the door and 4 on the right. 8 of them were filled with incense burners placed at their feet. There were 3 incense sticks burning in each incense burner, and one crucial job of the watcher was to monitor the condition of the incense sticks every 15 minutes. If there was anything abnormal with the coffins or the incense sticks, they would need to handle it and report to the local temple as soon as possible. Among the 8 bodies, 3 of them were from this day and the day before, which was the reason Sue needed to be here. "I don't think we have enough makeup and lipstick for today," Sue said to Gloria as she was stuck halfway trying to beautify the pale skin of a middle-aged man who died of overdrinking and liver cancer. "Gloria, can you make a note for us to buy it tomorrow? We need both red and purple. It's getting late, so we'll have to wrap it up." "Okay. Gosh, I wish I noticed it earlier," Gloria sighed, as she put down the notepad hanging from the wooden pillar in the main room. "And we need additional paper talismans and incense sticks as well. Why is everything running out so quickly?" "Their portions are getting smaller, even though the prices remain the same," Sue sighed and chuckled. "I mean, just barely a year ago, the lipstick would last almost twice as long, and the makeup boxes didn't have any padding at the bottom." "What changed?" Gloria shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe because the materials are getting more expensive. Maybe the workers at the plants need higher wages." Sue smiled while continuing her work. "But what can you do? These people still need to rest looking decent." "Hello, is anyone there?" An old woman with 2 young men behind her came in the door of the coffin home. "We have someone we would like to place." "Hi, I'm Gloria. I am the watcher today." Gloria immediately rushed to the door. The 2 young men behind the old woman were carrying a wooden coffin on bamboo shoulder poles. The coffin looked new and crude, with a red talisman drawn with golden patterns sticking on the top. "My apologies, we didn't know you were coming. Do you have a death certificate with you? And do you have a placement order or application?" "Here, the placement order from the local chapter of Community Collective." The old woman nodded and handed Gloria a small red envelope. "According to the death certificate, the one in the coffin was a young man, barely 19 years old. The cause of death was noted as an accident, and the date of death was 2 days ago." "Okay, but before the coffin could be placed, I need to check the body," Gloria sighed. The certificate looked authentic, just that it was too simple and vague on the cause of death. The placement order had an authentic seal from the Community Collective as well, even though things seemed somewhat strange and even a bit suspicious. She did not really have much of a choice. "Yes, but please be quick and respectful." The old woman nodded and signaled the 2 young men to put the coffin down. The two young men pulled some bamboo sticks from behind their backs, laid them on the ground and put the coffin on them, so that it would not touch the ground. Then one of the young men stood on the side to hold it steady, while the other pulled the lid ajar. The upper body of this unfortunate deceased was burned beyond recognition. There was just a shriveled charred head on equally bony and shrunken shoulders. The lower part of the body seemed to be in better condition, but still nothing for which Gloria could verify the identity. Gloria double-checked the photo on the death certificate and frowned. "Apologies again. I cannot identify the body at all. It would be a bit out of the norm and unorthodox to accept a body like this. I hope you understand. And I hope you'll understand a young man with no family, having tragically died in a fiery accident, is in dire need of a place to rest. It's almost 3 days. You, as a watcher, should know how urgent it is." The old woman sighed, but responded with a stern tone. "So please take him in. Too much time has passed already." "Okay." Gloria checked the death certificate and the placement order once more. With the placement order alone, she did not really have much of a say in the matter anymore. "We're at capacity now, so have you brought green bean cakes? Here." The old woman handed Gloria a red cloth-wrapped package, then waved the 2 young men behind her. "Bring him in. Be careful." The young men put the coffin in the last spot in the main room. Then the old woman handed Gloria a bag of yellow paper coins, made of relatively good quality paper, along with a small wooden box. "These are for the already placed, and the box is for this house, Prime Cinnabar. I'm sure you'll put it to good use." "Thank you. Sifuko will definitely appreciate it." Gloria handed Sue the green bean cake to free up her hands for the paper coins in the wooden box. There were certain processes and rituals needed when new coffins arrived and when the coffin's home was filled. The green bean cakes were gifts from the newcomer to the ones that were already there. The paper coins were just add-ons as signatures of goodwill. Additionally, all the incense sticks at the foot of each coffin needed to be replaced, so that all the incense sticks in the rooms would be burning in sync. A small piece of green bean cake in a small porcelain plate was placed at the foot of each of the coffins. On the left side of the incense burner, the paper coins were placed at the right side of the burner, with small wooden paperweights on top. All of this was to make sure that the ones who were placed earlier would welcome the newcomer, as the newcomer had brought them snacks and money before they were sent on their way. There was barely any skin on the new body's face, so there was very little Sue could do to make him look better. The most she could do was try to get a suit of decent-looking shroud. Luckily for both of them, there were quite a few of them safely and soundly stored in a box made of pal rosa wood. "Let me help you." When Sue picked the shroud and was ready to put it on the new body, Gloria rushed over and lent a hand. It was a sign of respect for both the already placed and the new body that every one of them was dressed before the sun set. They managed to put the shroud on at the last light of the sun, and it was time to close down. A night alone awaited Gloria, since Sue's work was done. "All right, long day. Good luck. See you tomorrow." Sue let out a sigh of relief, grabbing her coat and her purse, and was ready to head out the door. "Hope you can get some sleep tonight." "Yeah, me too." Gloria shrugged and shook her head. "Just a minute, I need to check the incense sticks first." Sue nodded and waited by the door for Gloria to check on all the incense sticks. Her eyes couldn't help but drift towards the incense burner at the foot of the new coffin. Out of the 3 incense sticks, the 2 on the side seemed to have burned extra fast and only had half their length, but the one in the middle barely burned, sticking up like a sore thumb. "Gloria, this isn't right," Sue asked with a trembling voice, and with a hand on the door her fingers became slightly pale. Gloria turned to where Sue was pointing. She froze for a moment, and before she could react, Sue already stumbled out the door. "Wait, Sue! Come back!" Gloria's left hand tapped the ground and launched her body towards her friend. Sue felt a sudden pull on the back of her collar, and with a surprised scream, she was yanked back in. "You can't leave now. This is the worst kind of burn." Gloria steadied Sue's body with her left palm on her back. "We're likely both marked. We need to stay somewhere safe through the night. Then we should go to the Kashidi Temple tomorrow. That's the closest temple to us." "Wait, what's happening?" Sue had been working at this coffin house for quite some time, yet this was her first time seeing something like this. "I don't know, but I'm afraid we don't have a choice." Gloria immediately locked the front door. then rushed to one of the pillars in the main room and pulled on a red rope. 2 large red nets rolled down from the ceiling, enclosing the coffins to the left and right parts of the room. She then grabbed Sue by the arm and rushed into the back room and bolted the door, separating them from the main room. There were talismans on the door, as well as symbols carved on the door frame that would serve as their protection. They should be safe now. Should. For now. Oh my God, what's happening to us? What's happening? Sue burst into tears the moment Gloria locked the door. A chilly breeze blew through the gap underneath the door, lowering the room temperature and making the candles flicker. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. We'll be fine. Stay here. Gloria looked under the altar of the room and pulled a small bag of paper talismans. 2 thick red candles and a small jar of thick yellow liquid. Sit on the mat, recite some scriptures, close your eyes, and block your ears. Okay. Sue immediately sat down on a hay mat in front of the altar, blocked her ears with her hands, and started chanting scripture verses with her eyes closed. Gloria, on the other hand, had to act according to the notes from the Watcher. There was a short, straight sword made from peach wood with red threads wrapped around its blade on the altar between 2 red candles. There was 1 small metal jar right in front of the peach wood sword. Inside was stored some blessed oil and grains of sticky rice. Bang, bang, bang! Someone or something banged on the door. Sue jumped from where she was and hid in the corner of the room behind the altar, trembling, but still reciting scripture verses. The hairs on the back of Gloria's neck stood up, and her back tightened. But she needed to proceed according to the notes. Gloria picked up the short peachwood sword in her right hand and opened the metal jar, and put a grain of oil-soaked sticky rice on her left index finger. She then dipped this finger on the flame of one of the candles. The rice caught fire, along with the oil on her finger. Not even flinching, she pushed the grain of sticky rice on the bottom of the peachwood sword's pommel. Under normal circumstances, she would not want to do this in front of Sue, for it would draw unnecessary attention. But now she had no choice. Bang, bang, bang! The door was banged once again. Sue whimpered and curled up harder in the corner. "Who's in there?" A hoarse voice came from the outside. "Who's in there? Let me in!" "Hang in there. I'll deal with this." Gloria patted her friend on the shoulder, then snuck towards the door with raised heels. She could see a pair of pale, bare feet through the gap under the door, covered in black root-like veins. There was a small sliding window on the door. But it was clearly not the time to use it. Gloria bit her middle finger and drew a little bit of blood from her fingertip and smeared it on the body of the wooden blade. At the same time, she concentrated her ki and infused it into the wooden blade. Not many could work against manifested spirits, and she hoped this could, like the notes suggested. After putting the candles at both sides of the doors and waiting for a moment, the feet behind the door started walking away, mumbling. After a few breaths, she slid open the sliding window with trembling hands. Not the burned young man like she was thinking, but a middle-aged man with only half his face covered in makeup and unfinished lipstick. Right now the incense sticks at the feet of all the coffins were still burning. The man stood in the middle of the room with his hands in the air. Smoke rose from the incense and somehow from the coffins. The smoke condensed and weaved into long threads, slowly flowing into the man's nostrils and mouth. Gloria did not know what this man was doing, but her ki concentrated on her eyes. She could see a blood-red glow in the man's shoulders and chest getting brighter and stronger. Whatever it was, it must not be good for anyone. After a short moment of hesitation, Gloria moved the 2 candles to Sue's side, then walked back to the door. "What are you doing?" Sue asked. "Handling this," Gloria said as she opened the door. "Wait, Gloria!" Sue only heard the slamming of the door responding to her cry. The middle-aged man was clearly not expecting anyone to fight back. His attention was only drawn to Gloria when the glowing wooden blade in her hand pierced through his barely visible shield of gray mist, shrouding his body, along with his skin and flesh. Orange and red sparks burst from his wound. He was thrown to the side as if he'd been hit by a speeding car. The man disappeared in a puff of dark smoke before he hit the red net. Gloria felt something coming at her from behind. She jumped forward and rolled right. Her leg was scratched by a cold claw and sharp nails. After the pain, a chilling sensation was trying to seep into her muscles from the wound. The middle-aged man was barely donning a human shape anymore. His skin was cracking up, leaking dark, blood-red tar. After letting out an ethereal and high-pitched scream, his eyes turned dark red and melted away. With his arms extended forward, he lunged. Gloria tapped her feet on the ground and leapt towards the red net with her ki coursing through her meridians and muscles. The man disappeared in a puff of dark smoke again. The same sense of danger struck her. Out of pure instinct, Gloria tossed her 3 folded paper talismans in her left hand to her left. The paper talismans ignited and exploded like firecrackers. A deafening scream made her ears ring and her visions blur. But she was only stunned for a brief moment, before she spun around and sunk the peachwood sword in the middle of the aged man's chest, pushing him into the red net behind him. The red net stuck to the man's body like a spider web. His cracked skin started melting and crumbling. Pungent, tar-like liquid gushed from his eye sockets, from his nostrils and his ear holes. The peachwood sword ruptured and burst into flames, and Gloria had to let go of it. Leapt back, with the last remaining paper talisman in hand. The man struggled but for a few more seconds, before his entire body burned up, leaving a dark, human-shaped mark on the red net, and a lingering smell of charred, rotten flesh. Only until the next morning, when the first light shone through the window, did Gloria and Sue dare step out of the back room. The last talisman was luckily not needed, and the middle-aged man was the first and only source of danger throughout the whole night. When Gloria checked on them, all other bodies showed some sign of cracking of the skin. Their fingers all became slightly thinner than before. The body of the middle-aged man, on the other hand, seemed to be totally burned down and carbonized. The new body, the one whose face was almost completely burned beyond recognition, also underwent some changes. The area of burn seemed to have grown for some reason. His arms seemed to have shifted in position, and most obvious and jarring of all, his head turned. If he still had eyes, he would be staring right at the coffin in which the middle-aged man lay. Such a wonderful Christmassy story. Our next story features a returning character. We have Cash Marley and the White Child by Justin Frazier. Casha rolled into an alleyway and killed the engine. Her eyes were burning. Just a little sleep was all she needed. How many nights could she keep this up? Casha? Casha, I know you're thinking about sleep, but... Casha stumbled from the bike and fell to her knees. She leaned back against the wall and drew her knees up to her chin. As pale as the ghost now speaking to her, Casha strained to keep her eyes open. Tikal, aforementioned ghost, sat next to her, though she floated several inches off the pavement. Very difficult, she always told Casha, to find the ground from the spirit world. There's always danger in places like this. I can feel... Tikal trailed off. Nearly in tears, Casha waited, trying to keep her vision from blurring. Tikal gazed off into some unseen dimension. Oh, I guess you're safe for now. Nothing dangerous here? Tikal shook her head. Nothing dangerous to us. Casha buried her head in her knees and closed her eyes. You shouldn't sleep. She considered trying to slap the intangible Tikal for a moment, but that wasn't Tikal's voice. Who was that, and how long had she slept? 2 seconds if you're wondering how long you've been asleep. And relax. It's just that girl sitting next to you. Casha turned. A shivering girl sat close by. The girl frowned. Oh wow, you look messed up. I mean, real bad. You almost ran me over with your bike, by the way. And this isn't a good place to sleep off alcohol or whatever you've been doing. I'm Amelia. She extended a hand. Human warmth. But the hand was freezing. Judging by her ragged look and unkempt hair, this girl didn't get indoors very often. Casha made a lengthy handshake. Cash Marley, I just need sleep. Are you cold? I'll get you a blanket from... The girl shook her head and adopted the same knees-up position Kasha employed. Darkness had slowly blanketed the city, and the alley filled with shadows. Brother, Kasha did hate shadows. And if this girl was some evil spirit from somewhere on Tikal's side of existence, Kasha wasn't sure she had the strength to escape. The girl looked too cheerfully miserable to be a spirit. Kasha produced a blanket from her saddlebag and offered it to the girl. I don't want to sleep. Then stay warm and I'll sit next to you. Are you hungry? Amelia shook her head. Got a guy that gives me food in the park. I don't suppose you'd stay awake with me. Only I'm too scared to sleep. Alarm bells. Despite everything Tikal said, Kasha wasn't allowed to feel safe. Not as long as that book was under her protection. With the entire world hanging in the balance, Kasha had to be suspicious of everything. This girl, though, seemed every bit as afraid to shut her eyes as Kasha. Why don't you want to sleep? If it's getting mugged you're worried about, scoot behind my bike and let them rob me. I'm too tired to care. Amelia shook her head, giving Kasha an odd look. Oh no, it's not that. It's safe to sleep here, just not safe to sleep. Kasha felt like she'd seen this in a movie before. She put her head in her hands. It's going to be something like that, isn't it? Well, I know you can hear me. Tikal looked appalled. I said it's safe, I wouldn't lie. Amelia, unable to see Tikal, and assuming Kasha was still talking to her, tilted her head. Yes, I can hear you. Look, if you're not feeling well, I know a place where you can get help. Kasha shook her head, and the movement almost caused her to slip into that peaceful dream world she so yearned to visit right now. But seriously, why shouldn't I sleep? The girl shivered. If you sleep, the white child will come for you. Kasha turned and gave Tikal a look of accusation. Tikal shrugged. She's probably batty, said Tikal. Amelia went on. It was a strange dream. I was in a bed, and that's not something that happens to me much. I remember trying to fall asleep. Imagine trying to fall asleep in a dream, but it felt very real. My whole body felt heavy. I tried to move and couldn't. At first it just felt weird. If I could just start to rise a little, I could get up, no problem. But the only part of me that could move was my head. Kasha listened. She'd had strange dreams before. Things like feeling heavy and not being able to move happened sometimes. What worried her was the way the girl was shaking. Amelia was probably used to the cold, and right now they were both wrapped in the same blanket, sharing warmth. Amelia was not just telling a story, she was reliving trauma. That's when the white child appeared. He stood over me, just staring with those eyes. He was like a big ceramic statue in the shape of a boy, all white. I think he was glowing, or there was some kind of light behind him. I could tell he was holding me in place with that gaze. I felt like my ghost was shaking inside my body, trying to move. But I was pinned in place. It was... This girl was gone. Not crazy, just weary from being trapped in a nightmare and trying to figure out how to escape. Kasha understood this. This child, does he try to hurt you? Amelia shook her head. He just stares, and he makes it so I can't move. Then I wake up, and I know it's a dream, but it feels a little different. Different enough that I feel like maybe it was really, real. And it's so confusing because he looks, I don't know, so nice. How many times did it happen? 7? Kasha felt her heart start to pound. She could not discount the idea that something was happening to this girl. The question was whether someone or something was after the book. I don't suppose you're protecting some ancient charm or book or something. Amelia looked sour. I thought you wouldn't make fun of me. Kasha raised her hand. I just thought you could use a laugh. Tell you what, Let's just fall asleep, and if the white child shows up, maybe we'll be safe together. Kasha wanted to sleep if it meant 1,000 white children, and for once, she didn't have to sleep alone. If they could both make it through the night, Kasha would buy Amelia a nice meal and some warm clothes. Teekl stood lookout while Kasha slept. Probably not a useful post, since Teekl was fairly certain that shouting at Kasha to wake her up would give her friend some very ghostly nightmares. However, Teekl got a bit of a kick out of watching the two girls' heads slowly fall forward as they fell asleep, and they ended up leaning into each other, curled up under a single blanket like a couple of kids. "Well, that's just adorable," Teekl muttered, grinning. Suddenly, Teekl's eyes glowed a deep crimson. Something had moved close by. She looked down at the girls again. Yes, very close. Indignation. Being left on her back after loaning a blanket to... Kasha awoke. The dream faded away from memory, and she couldn't recall to whom she had loaned the blanket. Devilish darkness surrounded her. Yet she was ensconced in heavenly softness and warmth. Her eyes tried to drift shut, but there was no going back to sleep. A clock ticked, and her skull throbbed. Kasha realized she was at home in her room. The mattress was a cloud. Pain and weariness seemed to drift away, and all the screaming and terror of her dreams vanished into the abyss of memory. She was so tired. Her outstretched arms wouldn't move. She focused her efforts, but in her drowsiness, she just couldn't get them to budge. In an extreme act of will, she tried to hurl herself to one side, but Kasha remained on her back, staring at the ceiling. Her head could move a little. She turned and looked at the wall. Something seemed wrong with the colors. She must have been very tired, for the space between her bed and the wall was nothing but a dark chasm without a floor. Kasha's heart started to pound inexplicably. Fighting to keep her eyes open, she turned her head. And there, Kasha felt a chill grow from the center of her gut, right up into her chest. At the edge of her bed stood a creature of dull white, like plaster, glowing dimly and staring at her with solid white eyes. The figure was that of a young boy, taller than herself and statuesque, because he was, in fact, a statue. The statue moved. He looked her up and down, then stared into her eyes. Kasha remembered hearing about the white child from somewhere. He sent terror coursing through every inch of Kasha. She struggled to get upright, to push herself away, but it was no use. Her spirit lay trapped in her body that would not respond, her mind screaming in visceral desperation. The boy moved closer. Kasha could feel the heaviness he exuded, a power that held her in place. She tried to scream, but all that escaped her throat was a tired groan. "Who are you?" The child turned to stare at the newcomer. Kasha felt some of the weight lifted, but movement was still impossible. Her heart felt like it might beat out of her chest. Was that Teekl? Teekl had a ghostly glow about her. Kasha furrowed her brow, trying to understand. What was Teekl doing in her room? Teekl was away on a long trip, wasn't she? Or hadn't something happened to... Oh wait, what was it? There was something important about Teekl that Kasha couldn't remember. The white child faced Teekl, not with menace, but with curiosity. Teekl returned the look, but there was a hint of suspicion in her eyes, and she looked serious. Teekl never looked serious, bless her soul. She was the most airheaded girl Kasha knew. Teekl was usually cross-eyed and deep-thought about things like, say, tying her shoes. Kasha couldn't imagine what had happened to make this change in Teekl, but her presence was reassuring. Was Teekl in any danger from this strange statue boy? Kasha struggled and twisted, tearing at invisible bonds. Nothing helped. She could only watch dully as Teekl and the white child confronted one another. "What are you doing to Kasha?" The ceramic boy looked at Kasha, then back at Teekl. He must have decided Teekl didn't matter, because he turned his full attention on Kasha, and Kasha felt a great weight press her fixedly to the mattress. The pressure caused her to crave rest, to slip deeper into the blackness of sleep. Teekl pouted angrily, her eyes flared and threatening red. "Get away from her! Kasha! Kasha, you need to wake up! You're dreaming! Kasha!" What on earth was she talking about? This wasn't a dream. This was her room. This had to be her room. She struggled and twisted, but strain as she might, her body was a stone. Was Teekl somehow trapped here too? Kasha felt an urgent need to rise and rescue her ever-stumbling friend. Teekl always needed rescuing, and probably always would. Hadn't Kasha decided long ago to always protect her best friend? "I'm not the one trapped, Kasha. I'm already dead. Literally zero reason to ever worry about me again." The statement sent a jolt through Kasha. Why would Teekl spout such a dreadful lie like that? Teekl hardly lied about anything. No, Teekl absolutely wouldn't lie about that. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Teekl was dead. Memories came flooding back. The book, the collapse, the flight on the motorcycle, the terrible evil. "Don't panic now, Kasha." But was that her arm starting to burn? The markings that had etched themselves into her flesh sizzled. Kasha never should have used magic from that book. One day the curse would consume her, for she had little choice anymore, when faced with her demons, but to call upon the power from another world. She summoned that power now. Slowly, so slowly, Kasha found her arm lifting, and felt herself able to rise. Even with the magic, the effort was extreme, but she could do it. The white child turned on her, marching towards the bedside. He bore down upon her with every ounce of his power, trying to force Kasha back into the bed. It was too late. Kasha rose from the bed and matched his powerful gaze. This was quite some spirit she was up against. Normally, they had little power to bind the living in place. Perhaps in her dreams, the spirits were stronger. No problem there. Kasha was waking up. "Oh no. Kasha, I think we misunderstood. What the hell is that?" Teekl vanished from the dream, leaving behind a terrible aura of urgency. Fires rose around Kasha's bed, and she heard drums beating. The room slipped away. She stood before the white child, and he seemed to carry pity in his eyes as the dream fell apart. What was really going on here? Kasha struggled to reach out to the white child, trying to hold the dream together long enough to find answers, but it was too late. She had willed herself into wakefulness. The dream was gone. Amelia was still there, drooling on Kasha's shoulder. Kasha felt the magic burning her skin and knew the dream was real. Her heart was pounding so hard she thought she might die right there. Indeed she might. Weariness became panic, which became fear of the unknown, which in turn became fear of the known, for looming overhead stood a 10-foot-tall horror. The very darkness bubbled and turned smoky purple, and within those dimly glowing mist moved a blurred shape composed of tentacles and curling limbs. The head of the thing may or may not have been hideous, but the dark smoke surrounding the creature lent all sorts of horrific ideas to the imagination. There was a scream in Kasha's ear. Amelia struggled from under the blanket, but Kasha grabbed the girl and placed a hand over her mouth. The scream meant Amelia could see it. "Get back! Stay behind me!" Kasha threw off the blanket and shoved the girl behind a flimsy aluminum garbage can. Tearing at her saddlebag, Kasha retrieved the book and slammed it open into the concrete, feverishly flipping through the pages. Teekl was there between the purple fumes of evil and Kasha. Teekl had made a last-minute save, probably the only reason why Kasha hadn't awakened to her own slaughter. "Kasha, I can't hold it. It doesn't understand what I am, but as soon as it works things out, it's going to kill you." Kasha started to mutter unreadable words. She traced with an index finger. A glow marked the ground in deep crimson as Kasha drew the eldritch shapes of a powerful spell. She understood the magic instinctively because the book was using her. Whether for good or evil, she knew not. "Oh my God," Amelia cried. "What's going on?" Tikal struggled to overwhelm the creature with spiritual essence. It started to twist and squirm, and it let out a roar only heard on a psychic level. Kasha fell back, and Amalia was struck by a blow to the head as she rolled into the tire of Kasha's bike. The creature swatted at Tikal, but the blow passed right through. Next, the tentacles in the mist began to rise, preparing to strike at the two girls who weren't already inured to death. The white child suddenly took form before Kasha's eyes. It stared deep into her soul as if asking her a question. Tikal gave a strange shout. "Kasha, I figured him out! It's this thing. It hunts through the darkness, but it cannot see a dreaming soul. It's not from the spirit world. Forget the book. Grab Amelia and let the white child put both of you to sleep. That's the only safe place." Kasha leapt for Amelia. Likely, Amelia could see neither Tikal nor the white child. Kasha pulled Amelia close, held her hand and said, "Listen, I can make this go away. You just need to close your eyes. Trust me and close your eyes, and this nightmare will end, I promise." Amelia stared, perplexed and whiter than the white child himself. But she nodded, and the two girls shut their eyes and squeezed each other's hands tightly. The white child touched both their foreheads. Their grips loosened, and all was darkness. At dawn, where monsters could not hunt, Kasha wrapped Amelia in the blanket. The girl was sound asleep, looking peaceful. Carefully, Kasha slipped some money in the girl's coat and turned her back. She kicked the stand out and walked her motorcycle towards the street. Best to leave Amelia to think it was all a nightmare. That thing will starve with the white child here to protect everyone. She'll be safe. Not saying goodbye? Tikal asked. Kasha shook her head. No point. Friends were not a luxury Kasha could afford. Not living ones, at least. I couldn't even help here. I can never do anything, Kasha complained. There was a tired bitterness in her voice, but Tikal looked back at the girl they had met, now tucked away in the dark alley, bundled in a blanket with a little love and caring. "Oh, I don't know. I think you always manage to do a little something when it counts." And with that, the 2022 Hear My Story contest finale is done. Thank you all for listening, and I wish you all good luck.